Hi, welcome to Henry Freudenburg Insurance Agency. The oldest insurance agency on Galveston Island has been owned and operated by the same owner for 55 years. We pride ourselves in concierge service for all of our clients. We thank you so much for all of our loyal clients that have been with us for so many years.
Henry, what services does the Henry Freudenburg Insurance Agency provide?
Henry Freudenburg Insurance Agency provides a full line of property and casualty coverage. And what we've done is that we were with State Farm, as we said here, for 45 years, and we were brought up in the insurance business that every individual is special and should get personal attention. And we've carried it a little bit further to what we call concierge service. And what that simply means is that every one of our clients have my personal cell number where they can call me whenever they see a need. Also, we have now quite a few of our clients that are elderly, and from time to time, my assistant Margaret will go out and maybe pick up a signed document that they need or whatever, or sometime even a payment. Some of our people don't have a checking account, believe it or not. So, but that's what we call concierge service, and I think the personal attention, I think, is what most companies, period, today don't have. I mean, think about the last time that you purchased something of any magnitude. Did anybody even say, other than a perfunctory thank you, they never say anything more. We send a thank you card to every individual that buys a policy from us. We like to tell them personally thank you. And then we also give a $25 gift card if they refer their friends to us. So it's sort of a chain reaction is what really made us grow and prosper.
Now tell me about the upcoming 55th anniversary celebration. What will it entail? How many people are expected to attend? Is it invitation only? And what would you say to encourage someone to attend?
Well, we've had probably 12 anniversary parties. The first one we had was after we was 5 years in business, and then we started every 5 years. And one time we did two within a 10-year period, but it wasn't exactly 5 years apart. But we had the 50th anniversary. You know, we held it here at the office, and we had no idea that the amount of people that would attend had grown exponentially. We've had several parties in the back of our office and had bands and so forth. Well, we had 100 or 200 people, but last year, I mean, not last year, our 50th anniversary 5 years ago, we had almost 300 people. So we're planning on 300 people attending this time. It's going to be at the Casey Hall downtown, not here at the office. And we have another sort of unique opportunity because Nancy's nephew, Chris, has got a doctor's band. He's a dentist, and they put together a little band, but they're going to also introduce a song that they wrote about me and about the agency. And I got to see a little bit of it, and it really is laughable, is what I guess the best way to put it. But yeah, we're gonna have as many dignitaries there as we can possibly get on a Saturday of April 25th. So, but it is an invitation only event because otherwise we wouldn't know who was coming and so forth. So it will be very special to our clients. First picture here is Nancy and I in the new AT&T Stadium. We were down on the field and took a picture by the star. That happened in 2018. And the next deal here, this trophy, this was one of the trophies from the first Galveston sports car race at Galveston Airport. And it was the Junior Chamber of Commerce that put this event on. And the JCs were very instrumental in the early part of my life because you could join from age 25 to 35, and after 35 they kicked you out. So you had to be young, and you had to be energetic to be able to do things and work on projects. And then the other trophy is a trophy that I won in 1965. I became a State Farm agent in 1964, and in '65 I was awarded the Rookie of the Year for the southwestern region of State Farm, which was basically Texas and some parts of Oklahoma, but it entails 700 agents. And then the truck was just a sales award that I won as 18-wheeler. And the nutcracker on top there is one that we got in in Vienna at one of the State Farm trips. And then over here is one of the famous parts of my life is wild turkey. So without wild turkey, we can't get through a lot of things. So that was a gift box that was given to me. And then here was one of the triplets of the Dallas Cowboys, Michael Irwin. Michael and I have been good friends since he played with the Cowboys. And this was just recently taken at the last Super Bowl. This was taken the first part of February of 2020 in Florida. And then this is the exact replica of the Lombardi Trophy, the Super Bowl trophy. It's the same dimensions, same weight, everything. 7 pounds in weight is what the real trophy that's given to the teams weigh. And then this is a replica of Roger Staubach's Super Bowl ring from 1972 when he won the Super Bowl. So that's a copy that I got. They call it a salesman's copy. And then here is Emmitt Smith's signed helmet. He was another one of the triplets. It was Michael Irwin, Emmitt Smith, and Troy Aikman. And that's one of Emmitt's signed helmets. And one of the caps that he had, number 22. And then that's an image of the old Cowboy Stadium that was in Irving, Texas. And that was given to me by my son, Scott. And then in back of that is Scott's son and my grandson, Ian. He's the one that was in the original invasion of Iraq, and he did 3 terms in Iraq with the U.S. Marine Corps on an invasion, and 2 times after that. This year was the 27th Super Bowl that I've attended, and Ian went there with me. And then, of course, the most famous part of my life was when I was mayor of the city of Galveston. So these are some of the things that we're going to touch on today and expand a little bit for the family to be able to understand a little of my background. Some of them have asked me this and asked me that, so I said, well, we'll get a video put together and maybe we'll be able to answer quite a few questions. So we'll go from there. Thank you.
Now, in today's business climate, a 55th anniversary celebration to mark a business is a feat worth celebrating. What's the secret to Henry Freudenburg Insurance Agency's longevity?
Well, I think what I just mentioned. I think personal service, having a unique ability where if someone calls and asks for a quote this morning, we try within an hour or two to give that quote back. Through market surveys and so forth, we found that that's a very, very unusual service that we have. I think really some agents believe that if they wait a day or two to call you back, that you think it's more important and they had to do more work or whatever. With the day of the computers, you can give a quote within an hour or two without any problem normally. So I think that, but then the other thing that Pat and I have talked about many times, we've been making a claim since our 50th anniversary that we're the oldest insurance agent owned and operated by the same agent on Galveston Island. We can't find any other insurance agency or whatever that's had the same owner that's been owned and operated by the same individual. A lot of them claim they're 100 years old and whatever, but the owner hadn't been there. There's been 5 or 6 different owners, and I think it's important that people know that one individual has grown with the agency, and then how many others that we have. We've got 2 30-year employees, so it's not just myself, but it's an entire team that's been together for a very long time.
Can you describe how the company benefits Galveston Island and beyond?
Well, Galveston is in itself is a little different in the fact that we're what they call a seacoast island, and we have had many discussions in the legislature and so forth. The difference in Galveston is that we have the only man-made seawall in the whole United States that was made by the Corps of Engineers, or produced by the Corps of Engineers. So having companies on Galveston Island is really a blessing for us. I mean, you have to understand that after 45 years in a major hurricane, Hurricane Ike, in 2008, in 2009, State Farm decided, well, we think it's time for you to retire, which that didn't go over very good because I told them there's only one man going to retire me, and it's not you. But what we did is that we picked up and started over basically again in 2009. But what was different is right here in this conference room, I had vice presidents of MetLife and Hartford sit here and say, look, all these companies are leaving Galveston, and now you want us to come here, And I told them a story about my professor. One of my professors at the University of Houston always said that if a whole bunch of people are coming this way down the street, don't go with them, go against them and see what they left. And so that's what we did, and we convinced these companies, and all of them now are very, very glad that they did, because we have one of the best loss ratios in the industry, really, to be sitting on an island. We never have really been unprofitable in 55 years, but so that made, I think, a little bit difference in knowing the island, because the Galveston seawall is 17 feet high, and we always think about the wind coming in and all this other things, but what we understood as being involved is that as the wind and the water comes, the water rises to the level of seawall, which then raises the wind up above the water, so that actually the wind load is 27 feet above ground level when it comes over the seawall in a hurricane. And what that means is, because of the density of the island, you have less damage behind the seawall than you do outside the seawall.
After 55 years of owning and operating the same agency, what is it about your job or the business in general that makes you want to go to work every day?
Well, my greatest enjoyment, other than being sharing my life with my wife Nancy, is seeing people. I love to see people. I love to help people. I love to be around people. And everybody always used to say, well, why don't you retire? When are you going to retire? Two of my best clients was at my front door about 2 months ago, and they asked me the same question. And I simply answered to them. I said, if I was retired, I wouldn't be able to see either one of y'all. And they sort of laughed and waved and said, okay, case so. So I think it's a fact that what happens in today's society is too many people go to work every day not enjoying what they're doing. And too many people are anxious to get out of what they're doing and go do something else, but they just can't do it. One of the large life insurance companies in the whole United States is right here on Galveston Island. And if you want to do a simple market survey, is go down there about 7 o'clock in the morning, just park in the parking place, and watch the people going to work. Because when they're going to work, they're walking real slow and sort of dragging. And at 4:30 when they get off, they're almost flying, getting away from the deal. So what does that tell you? That tells you they're not really anxious to go to work, but they're really feeling wonderful to get off of work and get away from there. So I think that's what it is. It's just enjoying people and being with people.
When you founded the company, how many employees did you have, and how many do you have now?
Well, for the first 3 years, it was me, myself, and I. I did everything. I had an old Ford that was just barely running, that I'd run up and down the highway with, because in the very, very beginning, I was the first agent in Galveston County. And after my first year in business, Lyndon Johnson at the time was president of the United States, and he dedicated Clear Lake as a manned space center. And so all of a sudden, I had 100 or 200 clients, and all of a sudden I picked up 100 or 200 clients moving into the manned space center. So that's when we went from only myself to having up to 12 employees before we made the major change. Today, we have 7 dedicated employees, and the reason today you don't need as many employees as you needed before, because of automation. There's so many things today that we can do faster and quicker. When I had 12 people, each one of those people at some point in time during the day was literally sitting with a calculator, whatever, figuring rates manually or what have you. But with the computer, all that is done so quickly now that you can do it. But as I mentioned earlier, the total combined years of experience with our agency is 163 years out of 7 people. So you can do the math and figure, most of my staff has been with us for a very long time.
So how's the company changed in 55 years?
Well, our major change is that for 45 years we were a captive agent. And what that simply meant that is, if you call me for a home policy, an auto policy, a boat policy, a business policy, I had to quote you with that one company and no other. I always wondered what independent agents had an advantage, what it would mean. And after 45 years and telling that, I'd never be able to continue business if I didn't retire, that nobody's going to be coming back to Galveston and all these other things. That was when I said, I don't hear the word never. I don't even believe in the word never. I think, if you say you can do it, you can do it, and we did it. We kept our same business model, but now the difference is that we have almost 15 companies that we put in a computer. If you call for a call quote, we can put your information in and run it through 15 companies, and that way we can give you what's the best in the market. And then that way you can make a decision. Do you want this company? Sometimes some people say, no, I've heard things about that company. I don't want to be with them. I want to go with the other one. And so they have a choice of how they want their pricing points to be handled. And the same way with home insurance. Very few agents on the island can quote admitted carriers for home insurance. And that's very, 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 very important, because admitted carriers simply means that they are overseen by the State Board of Insurance. If they're non-admitted, it means they're an offshore company, and the State Board of Insurance has very little or any control over it.
Your community involvement is impressive, Henry. Chairman of the City of Galveston Traffic Commission, Chairman of Galveston Oktoberfest, Chairman of the Coastal Windstorm Insurance Coalition, and founding member of the Galveston Pro-Business PAC, and then Mayor of the City of Galveston. Who instilled in you a sense of giving back to the community?
Well, when I went back to research this question, we suddenly discovered there wasn't any one person. It was the Junior Chamber of Commerce, as I said, in the younger years of my business experience, and it was the Rotary Club of Galveston. JC's motto is that service to humanity is the best work of life, and that's my true belief also. And then Rotary Club is simply service above self. So I think those two organizations is what really gave me the inspiration of giving back to the community, because we actually did things. With the Rotary Club, we worked on solving polio many years ago. Back then it sounded like something similar to what we have now with the coronavirus or whatever. But polio was a very devastating thing to a lot of countries, and Rotary Club, by their power and the organization, was able to conquer basically polio all over the world. So that's where I picked up a lot of my giving back.
Why are you so driven to help drive Galveston's economy?
Well, what I learned when I was mayor, I learned that there's no way really to tell what the unemployment rate is for Galveston, or a lot of economic numbers. They don't fine tune the data as much as you would like you hear on the national news, unemployment is so and so, whatever. But one thing that we found through the help of the Secretary of State is that restaurants are a very good economic barometer. And what they tell us that is, if you spend $1 at a restaurant, or $1 at any other business for that, it turns over 7 times within the community before it basically leaves town. So what I found is when I was mayor, we keyed in on restaurants. In fact, there's some restaurants still today where you can see the Mayor's Restaurant Award, because I gave them for giving back to the community, because there again, it's contagious. If restaurants are doing well, the owners give back to the community. The staff can pay their premiums, they can pay their dry cleaners, they can pay their rent and so forth. So I think that was one thing that I really was glad that I worked on, because the business climate of any community is very, very important.
In what years did you serve as mayor of Galveston, and what was it about the position that drew you to serve, and what do you think were your greatest achievements as mayor?
Well, I served as mayor from 1996 to 1998, and what I learned in the JC's, the Junior Chamber of Commerce, is that when we'd have a meeting once a week, and we'd discuss local projects and local things that were going on. And the JC's was sort of very unique, because if there were 20 guys in a room, and one of them started talking about, well, the city ought to do this, or this group ought to do this, or whatever, they immediately made them chairman. And so they said, you develop something and we'll look at it. So then you'd have another committee that would look at all the different suggestions and pick one project for the year that they would work on intensely on it. So, when I was mayor, I quickly learned, that there was a lot of things that could be done within the city. But one of the most ironic things of all is that on election night we were driving home, and it was about 11 o'clock in the evening, and Nancy turned to me and she said, okay, now that you're elected mayor, what are you going to do? And it was a good question. And it was something that I had pondered a long time, because from my work with the JCs, I knew basically what I was going to be looking for. And so what I did, I just simply turned to Nancy and I said, we got to change the attitude of the city. At that time, anything and everything in Galveston was negative. People would talk about the last one out, turn the lights off on the causeway and things like that. So what I did, I met with the city manager after I was elected, and I said, we got a problem in the city. Every time a citizen asks for something, the standard answer is, we have no money or we can't. And I said, I don't want either one of those phrases to be heard in City Hall anymore. And so after about 6 months of working intensely on it, we got rid of that manager because he wouldn't conform with, he kept saying, we don't have any money, we can't do it. The mayor thinks we can do this and we can't, so forth. So once we changed that from no money and we can't, the city started to turn around, and that was really a blessing to all of us in the community.
Out of all those community posts you've held, which position was the most rewarding and why?
Well, beyond a doubt, it was serving as mayor, because at the time we had about 60,000+ citizens. And to be able to represent a city that welcomed my forefathers from Germany in the 1800s, I'm the fourth generation of Freudenburg to be born on the island. And so it was a real honor for me to be the leader of my community, and I did everything possible I could to help the city to grow and prosper.
I understand for 48 years you've volunteered your time in the field of Texas windstorm insurance regulations. Why is that?
Well, being in the insurance business, the reason I first got into business was in 1961, there was a hurricane called Carla that hit Galveston Island. And at that time, a lot of companies ended up and left the island. And then there were several companies that wanted to come back to the island. And that's why in 1964 that I became an agent on Galveston Island. But then we had another storm that hit Galveston, and or hit Corpus Christi rather. And our state senator at the time saw the need that the companies were no longer writing Windstorm. So he designed a bill in 1972 that would provide windstorm coverage for people on Galveston Island. So that's what got my interest in the windstorm insurance industry itself.
Tell me about your role as chairman of the Coastal Windstorm Insurance Coalition.
Well, in 1984, our mayor, God bless her soul, Jan Cottershaw, she established the Galveston Windstorm Action Committee, and my good friend Odie Zapp was the first chairman of that committee. And several years ago, Odie decided he wanted to hang it up, and he asked me to take over as chairman. So for the last 4 years, I've been chairman, and it's been a very fulfilling job, because this past session of the legislature, the Texas Windstorm Insurance Association tried to raise the rates 4 times, and a total of 20% increase overall, 5%, 10%, and another 5%. And the good Lord blessed us because we were able to beat down all of those rate requests, so that for the last year and a half, the rates have not been increased for windstorm. So that made me very, very proud to be able to make that as successful.
Let's talk about your parents, Henry. What were their names?
My mother's name was Eleanor Seal, and her mom and dad came from England. Her dad was from London, England, and we tried to chase back the genealogy and were never able to because the bombings and all that happened during the war destroyed a lot of areas. My dad's name was Henry Charles Jr., and my youngest son, Paul, did a lot of research on that, and we were able to go to Germany and find our relatives in Germany. So we were able to do a little background on our genealogy, and hopefully if we can ever get the time to do it, we'll put together all that for another sequence for something like this.
What did your parents do for a living?
My mom was a secretary for Stuart Title. She was a very good friend of Mako Stewart, whose family started Stuart Title, and she worked there for many, many years. My dad was a longshoreman, a member of the union, and was a stevedore. My dad's mom and dad owned Freudenburg Flowers, and their motto on their van that they had was Freudenburg Flowers Bring Happy Hours. And they were the largest floral shop on Galveston Island. In fact, when the main Maceo died in the family, they handled the funeral. And back in those days, all the flowers had to be bought by boxcar with ice in them. And they took 3 days to bring the different boxcars in for the roses in that, for Sam Maceo's funeral, because that's what he was known for. And at that time, I think Galveston had more roses than any other city in the state of Texas, because it was just boxcar after boxcar of roses. So, and then my dad's sister was a Catholic nun, so her name was Catherine. And we were very blessed in the family to have religious connection with the church. And of course, my dad and my mom were devout Catholics as we are, so that really was something growing up.
How did your parents shape your character?
Well, I grew up in a very modest household because money was very, very scarce. I think it's interesting for my grandchildren and great-grandchildren and even my children to know that my first job, I started out at 25 cents an hour. And my dad and them were making a little over $1 an hour. And that sounds almost absurd, but things were a lot different. But what happened growing up in that circumstance, I think that I learned that hard work and sharing and caring really meant something to everybody, because everybody pitched in to help everyone. There wasn't no government subsidies. There was no government help on different things. It was families and neighbors helping each other. And in putting this together, I thought about something that if you visualize for a few minutes, in the early 1950s, there was no TVs, there was no air conditioning, there were no cell phones, and there were no computers. And the only telephone you had to share with 7 other people. And how that worked is that everyone had a ring. The first ring might be neighbor number 1, the second ring might be yours, the third ring might be somebody else. And so it was a little bit different than today. When the phone rings, you know it's for you. But back in those days, it's with 7 people answering the phone sometime made it a little bit hectic. But I think growing up in a modest household really shaped my character tremendously.
What was the name of your personal role model, and what did that person do or say to earn that place in your life?
Well, there again, I was fortunate to really have 3 role models at 3 different times in my life. My dad was probably one of the hardest working people I've ever known. He would go to work early in the morning, work on the waterfront, come back home, eat dinner, and then go work something on the house and build something or work on the car. So my dad's normal work day was started at 7 and usually ended about 10 o'clock at night. So for me, that was a work ethic I just adopted. I didn't know 9 to 5 and never have known 9 to 5. So I'm as likely to be here working on a Saturday or Sunday as I am working during the week or working at night. So, but my dad, always believed in a handshake was a firm commitment, and that your word was your bond. And I remember when he was dying from cancer, he told me, that he had no money to leave to me as the only child. My mom had a modest earnings that he'd left to her. But he said, the one good thing that I can give you that money can't buy is a good name. And so as a Freudenburg family, from my youngest and oldest son to my grandson and granddaughters, we've always prided ourselves that the one thing that we have to leave a legacy is our name, because your name means a whole lot. And in this day and age, as we see a lot of times with some things that's going on now, people belittle each other's name at just a drop of a hat. The other mentor and person that played a role model for me was Senator A.R. Babe Swartz. He was a political role model and my mentor for 60 plus years. And the main thing I learned from Senator Swartz was that in politics, friends can become enemies and enemies can become friends. And I have, over the years, I've weathered that exact same situation from time to time. And Senator Swartz was the grandfather of the Windstorm legislation for the Texas coast. And then in business, my role model was O.A. Buck Edgeworth. And he was my role model in the business world. And as I said here, the trophy that I won, the Rookie of the Year, was a trophy really that he had a hand in. It's a real trophy in the sense that it's not plastic, it's real marble and granite in it. And as you can see, since 1965, it hasn't tarnished. So you know that it's made of the real stuff. And then after I won the Rookie of the Year in 1965, I went on to become a member of the President's Club in honor of Buck Edgeworth. And so I was fortunate to have really three mentors.
You served in the U.S. Navy. What was your rank in the Navy?
Well, I ended up being a seaman first class, a seaman apprentice, and then seaman 1, 2, and 3. And I ended up from a seaman apprentice to the seaman third class. And
where'd you serve?
Well, we basically served in the Atlantic and the Caribbean, and other than being in a fierce hurricane during part of my service on the USS Robinson, we were fortunate enough to make a movie. And I just looked on YouTube, and the movie is now posted on YouTube, and the name of it is The Whaleboats with Jeff Chandler. If you look at the movie and you see the big guns firing at the Japanese Zeros that were firing at the ship, for 8 seconds you can see me with my helmet on, holding on to the big anti-aircraft gun, firing at these Japanese Zeros. And Jeff Chandler was a wonderful individual. He was a great movie star, but as Pat and I discussed yesterday, he had an operation and died at the age of 42. So he had a very, very short life span. But Whaleboats is a very, very interesting story, especially when you were involved in making it, because one of the things that they did, we were shooting at clouds, not at planes. And the movie director would tell us what part and what cloud to shoot at, and then we trained the guns back down in the water. And then the guys in the back of the ship would drop depth charges at shallow depths. And the depth charges would go off and throw big waves of water up in the air. Well, it was a beautiful sunshiny day when we made it. In the movie, it's a dull day, very overcast, like it would be raining or storming or something. You see a Japanese Zero coming in, and the bullets hitting it and catching on fire and crashing in the water, and then the splashing. So when you're involved in making a movie, it's really interesting to see how things can change right in front of your eyes, and you say, that didn't really happen, but that's what they did with it. So that was a very interesting experience.
And what year were you discharged, and what was your rank?
Well, I was discharged as a seaman, and it was the early part of 1956.
Now let's talk about your first business, the island's first auto customizing shop. Things like, when did it open? Why did you choose auto customizing? What was the name of your business? And when and why did the shop close? I understand you had a serious injury on the job. What happened, and what was the result?
Well, in 1952, my dad found an old 1941 Ford that was really a wreck, not literally from being in a wreck, but just from neglect. And he brought it home, and we took the fenders and everything off of it, and took all the paint off of it down to bare metal and worked on it. And I was doing that on nights and weekends, and he was helping me. And I took a liking to doing that. And then there was a new magazine that come out at the time called Custom Cars that was at the local drugstore. And that piqued my interest even more to customize cars. And in customizing what you did, like if the tail light come out with a certain shape, you would then design a different angle and a different pocket for the tail light or the headlight or the grill or the bumpers, so that the car was unique to you, that it was totally customized and totally just for you. And then in my senior year in high school, a lot of my friends wanted to get their cars customized to impress the girls on the beach, because a special car driving down the beach always got attention. And then and back in those days, Galveston had casino gambling. And so we had casino owners and some of their children who wanted their cars customized. So when I got married, I opened up Henry's Custom Body Shop, and we had quite a few clients that wanted their cars done. And then we turned into Henry's Paint and Body Shop after that, and started working on all kind of cars. And one of my famous cars that I helped change as customizing was a Thunderbird, and at the time we named it the Ladybird in honor of Lyndon Johnson's wife, who was a native Texan. And we won in a Detroit Auto Show the most unique design. And I think we started looking at the dates and on this particular show, and I think in the future we might want to look at it and see, because I'm not too sure that someone doesn't have a video of that show. It's amazing when you go back on the internet, the things that you can find that somebody had an old home movie or something on it. So I'm anxious to try to follow that up and see if there is a picture of the car, because the car and all the pictures and everything that we had was all lost in the storm that we had. So and then the reason I got out of the customizing business was that I had to close the shop in April of '64 because I had a car fall on me. One of the jacks failed when we was working on the front end of a car and broke my back, and I could no longer do the heavy work of picking up heavy tools and painting and that type of thing. So I was working with the insurance adjusters, and I expressed the interest. I said, I'd like to maybe become an insurance agent. And one thing led to another, and I was fortunate in the 1st of June of 1964 to be appointed insurance agent, and that's where my career began.
So in 1964, you opened the Henry Freudenburg Insurance Agency and spent the 45 years or so as a captive agent with a national insurance company. When and why did you decide to join Independent Insurance Agents of Texas?
Well, like I said earlier, it was a decision that I had to make, because I was put in a position that State Farm, when they decided they were going to leave town, they encouraged me very strongly to retire, because like they said, nobody's going to buy insurance on Galveston Island. No company's going to sell insurance anymore. All this negative stuff. And like I said earlier, I don't believe in the word never. And so I just told them, we'll part our ways, and I'll do what I want to do, and you do what you want to do. And I think that one of the things I think that could have been the situation in play, had I retired, I think State Farm then might would have moved in with a younger agent and tried something differently. And I think I was very successful in blocking that. So since 2009, State Farm has not been on Galveston Island, not had a presence here. So we were the first agent in Galveston County. We were the last agent on Galveston Island for State Farm. So I think it was a beginning and end story that I was very happy with, because it came out very well.
What's your favorite quote or saying, and why is it your favorite?
Well, I have two things that I've said from time to time, and I think one of them is sometimes we feel helpless, but with hope and prayer, all things are possible. I'm a very God-fearing person. I don't believe any one man is an island. I don't believe that any one man is a self-made man, whatever that means. I've heard that so many times. There's a lot of things that develop an individual's character and an individual's lifestyle, because I think, you know, if you believe in God, if you treat people as what the Bible tells you, I think that great things return to you, because I really believe that if you take care of your neighbor will ultimately take care of you. I think a lot of people go wrong though, because if I help Pat do something, if I then look for Pat to help me, that's where I go wrong. You know, I think that's where a lot of people go wrong. What the Bible really says is to help others, but it doesn't say that that particular other is going to help you. And that's what I found so many times. I had classmates that would help each other move, and then they'd get ready to move, and they'd say, that son of a gun won't help me, you know? Well, they were looking to the wrong place. So I think that, but then the other one, that is original quote from me from September the 1st of 2009, and Pat looked up last night, is that I never accepted defeat. And I think it's very interesting, because this is a motto from the principal at League City Elementary School, where she quoted my famous saying that I never accepted defeat. I always looked at it as a challenge. And I think that's very important, that if people look at defeat as an end of something, that's where they go down. And I think negative attitude and looking at defeat as the end of the world has devastated many people. I've been in the sports world long enough to know that champions are made of people that don't believe in defeat. And so that's the best quote that I've ever done myself.
Finally, after everything is said and done, how would you like to be remembered?
Well, I had a friend of mine that was a real good friend of mine in Atlanta, who's no longer with us, but he used to always say, you know, that I was a poor old country boy. And I think, you know, that sort of stuck with me, that being known as a poor old dumb country boy who made a difference, because by just faith, nothing else, I've been privileged to know some of the greatest people in the United States and even in the world in some cases. But I've been able to help and work on some things. But several of the things that I got involved in, this room was the first place where State Farm started to develop a computer for agents. And believe it or not, it was in 1980. You know, you'd think, well, computers are way back when. Computers really wasn't. Computers really didn't come into the forefront until the 70s for the everyday person. There was some big major IBM computers. But I helped State Farm realize, because the chairman of State Farm at the time said, we don't see why an agent would need a computer. You know, the yellow tablet has worked for us for all these years. We don't see why it couldn't continue. And that was sort of hard to tell a chairman, you know, well, I think things are changing. But anyhow, and then we also helped develop the first telephone system that State Farm put in agents' offices, because with the computer back in the 80s, we were able to, when someone called, your record would pop up. Today, that looks like a miracle. I've had salesmen come in here in the last 5-10 years saying, well, we got this new thing. Well, this new thing was really back in the 80s. But it was really unique, because if you called up and we had your business and we say, hi, how are you today? And mention your name and mention something about your house or your family. It was like, how do you know all that? You know? So that was something that we got involved in. And then by really developing in the early 80s, I was able to meet one of the two owners of Digital Equipment Corporation. It was out of Massachusetts, and it was a man named Mr. Olson, who was a professor at MIT. And they had computers, but believe it or not, back then they had two computers. One computer could do numbers, and one computer could do Word. And the two couldn't mix. They couldn't figure out. First of all, they couldn't understand why somebody that had a computer to do crunch numbers would ever want to do a computer that would have Word on it, and vice versa, because the first people that used computers basically were attorneys and professors and teachers and so forth. So we went to Equipment Corporation and Digital Equipment Corporation and showed them what we had developed here, and they got a team together and ended up building a computer where I could build a quote. So when you called up and said, wanted to get a quote, the printout would say what it was, is comprehensive, collision, or whatever, this number of deductible, this number of premium. Then it added the premium up, and then it put a paragraph down the bottom telling you about what your coverage was. Well, that was unheard of. But even to be able to print something on a piece of paper and give it to somebody with that type of data was just unbelievable. But that's some of the things that I got involved in, and so it's really been an interesting life to be able to do these things and be able to be involved with these things. Getting involved with the Dallas Cowboys, I've been privileged enough to be with every coach the Cowboys ever had. My wife and I did an interview with Coach Tom Landry, and we've been involved with every coach since that time. So the Super Bowl ring and the trophy and so forth is just another lifestyle that we've developed over the years. So, but I think it's really been a wonderful opportunity to share and to develop some things within our family and so forth. And I want to thank both of y'all for helping put this together. Thank you. God bless. Take care.
Thank you, Henry. Thank you.
Okay, that's a wrap.